Hello, everyone. Welcome to StormTALK. I don't want to take up too much of your time because we do have a statewide tornado drill that's about 25 or so minutes away from beginning. So I want to make sure everyone has time to certainly focus on that and review any of your safety plans and procedures, whether you're watching from work or from home. This is certainly a good time to do that. We've already been tested a couple of times, right, so far this season, and we're going to get tested more, even perhaps this week. So make sure you review these plans and keep them intact, even if I'm about to talk as well about the idea of colder weather that will eventually move back into the area. In fact, I do think I'll be able to get back to the title of Snow Talk, more than likely starting next week, the way it's looking right now. So more on that in the coming days. We got to get through this week first. All right, a lot to cover. So as always, if you have any questions, and I'm sure you will, on social media, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, I'll be able to answer some of your questions. Hopefully, I'll be able to answer some of these. If you want to say hello, like Angela. Hello, Angela. Hope you were doing well. Hello to Tammy as well. Good morning, Paula from Shelbyville this morning. Hello, Ashley. Hope you're doing well. She's like, watch Brian get all that. Yeah, I know. Ashley, I feel like you're part of the team at this point, right? So we always appreciate you watching, though, and always glad to help answer any questions you've got. So always feel comfortable to ask, all right? And Kathy, March came in like a lamb. And we'll see if that's really the case or not. There's your hint about later today. More on that in just a second. Let me get into the outlooks first, and then we'll break them down individually, okay? We'll start with the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. And we do have at least 2 days that are highlighted, one being tonight. It says today, but it's really this evening. We'll narrow that down the best that I can on impacts, location, and timing coming up. Tomorrow, we get another quiet day, and then we're back at it on Friday. Now, the severe risk has increased a bit more on Friday, and it likely will still get adjusted. The timing on this system continues to fluctuate, and that is going to make a big difference on what type of impact, both of them wind-related, that we'll see as we head into Friday. And again, I'll explain much more on that here in just a second. All right, let me start you off with a beautiful view. I like when we have the statewide tornado drill on days like this, at least mornings like this, because it calms, hopefully, a lot of the fears when you hear the air raid sirens going off, which, again, are about 20 minutes away from doing so. When you look out the window and like, oh, okay, everything's cool. Everything's cool. Now, what I don't like is when they're happening when we have a severe risk later on tonight. That's where it gets a little muddy, right? To be clear, there is no big tornado threat coming our way for tonight. If there's anything, and I'll point out on the list that I think may spike on the list, it would actually be the idea of some hail that could form. But again, more with the outlooks here in just a second. First off, it's worth mentioning the amount of warm air we're going to see today. No doubts, we are on track to be the warmest day of the year so far. Certainly on track to beat the record, which is 77. We've tried to make a run before to get to 80. We fell short. Today, we'll try it again, making a run for 80 degrees. We're up to, it says 57, but I just checked the numbers at the airport. We're already in the 60s in Louisville. So we're climbing several degrees per hour at this point. So we're on track to get into a very warm setup. Hold on one second. I see we got a spammer in the chat. Let me get rid of the spammer. Don't they know? It's a tornado drill day. You don't have to spam on tornado drill days. Okay, now let's get back to the warm weather. That's the plus side about today. What is going to be a bit odd is how we try to get into this evening, because in order to get the amount of warm air we're talking about today, there's two different ways you can really get that in this kind of scenario. One is going to be a very strong south or southwest wind. And two, actually it's at a third, sunshine. That'll be your second one. Your third one then that I added to the list, which is the most significant one today, is dry air. Remember, dew point naturally falls during the day and rises at night. So it is going to start to drop as we did this afternoon, but it will be a dramatic drop to where there will be a big gap between your actual temperature and the dew point temperature. If you follow the current conditions at all on the Wave Weather Now channel or on your app, you'll see that there will be a big difference. I'm thinking right now, Louisville will probably be somewhere around 79, 80 degrees, something like that, and a dew point of about 44, if I had to guess. That's what the separation will be roughly about 3 or 4 o'clock today. That's how we're going to get to the record warmth. Now, what will happen after the 4 p.m. window is the atmosphere is basically going to try to flip itself, if you will, like you would a pancake, and add in moisture suddenly to the atmosphere, but only for a short duration, just for a few hours tonight. Now, how much of that moisture will actually make it here, and when would it make it here? All that is crucial on having to overlap to create the perfect recipe, if you will, for thunderstorms to react to that and begin to pop on the radar. And in this environment, this will be a capped environment. So yes, when they pop, they will do just that. They'll be very robust as far as how quickly they will form. And usually when we see storms form that rapidly, damage and winds is one of your bigger issues, but hail tends to come into play as well on that. But they're not going to stay at that intensity the entire evening. There's only a short duration. In some cases, they only may be able to stay at strong levels for maybe an hour, and they'll already begin to collapse onto themselves, basically, as the atmosphere saturates out and the damage and wind threat will begin to diminish and become more of just a heavy rain scenario for those that get whatever's left. So it's only a short duration, but if it happens to be in your neighborhood, when they pop, then you may see some of those stronger parameters when it comes to severe weather for this evening. You see right now, we're nice and quiet, no problem at all. But here's that severe risk. It's a low wind risk, and it's mainly because the idea that as meteorologists, everyone's trying to figure out, okay, well, how much will that dew point come back up? When will it spike into the area tonight? Will it be enough to create the potential for severe weather? If it's not enough, they're not going to get to severe limits. They can certainly pop quickly and get some lightning and some heavy rain. You may get some pea-sized hail, but I don't know if you can get to severe limits. So I can see why there's hesitation. And that's why we've been hesitating too on the alert day setup for this evening, because it is a short duration, but I would not rule out that we could still go for an alert day for this evening. It is still possible. So stay close to Wave Weather app. If that decision's made, we'll try to let you know as soon as we have a better idea of how much moisture will get infused back in the atmosphere. But when you look at the risk again today, it is a marginal risk, and roughly along and south of the river, which is pretty fair because that's the zone that they seem to want to pop. Now, when you break down the potential, and again, your tornado risk, it's not even enough to show up within a given point geographically. So it's a very low in risk because the bases of these clouds are going to be relatively high up. So in order to get tornado potential, normally you would need a fairly low base of the cloud, because even if it were to spin, you were to get any rotation at all, if it's not going to be a threat to land areas, then it really doesn't matter, right? It just spins and stays aloft. This is one of those scenarios where the bases of the clouds more than likely will be fairly high. So the concern here is not with tornadoes. The concern is with the idea you can get a damaging wind gust, certainly when they pop, and then when the air saturates, you can get that dry pocket quickly will saturate. You can end up with a dry punch. You get shoved down to the ground, and that can be a strong wind gust. Usually in this scenario, they're very localized. I'm talking about by the street in many cases versus by the county. So that makes it even more difficult to predict, right? Your hail threat is there, and I like where they put it because notice, let me go back. Notice again where the wind threat was a little more broad into Kentucky, but the hail threat is only for right along the river because that's only a threat for when they first pop on the radar. And then you quickly get out of that phase and you get into a damaging wind threat that may linger a little longer, and then you're done with that even fairly quick. So I hope that all made sense. It's if you can picture it in animation, and I'm going to show you a future cast, it happens fast, it's over fast. All right. But the timing, I do think, is going to be very close to the sunset time period, if not before. So here's one of the high res models we look at. It is indicating 81 now for this afternoon. Now, again, you can get into the lower 80s today, but you would have to sacrifice something to do that, and that would be a lower dew point. That drier infused air into the area would allow for better mixing, and what we call that, and that would allow for temperatures to overachieve. That's possible, but unlikely. At the moment, I think 78 to 80 is fairly fair on the way it's trending. Now, watch Futurecast. Again, this is 4 p.m. We're good. Everyone's probably going to be out walking their dog. It's going to be a little breezy out. I mean, you can't have this much of a difference in dew point and temperature without the wind blowing around. So there will be a breeze at about 25, maybe up to 30 in some cases. So the wind will be noticed, but it's not going to be like Monday. But then we get into where they start to pop. Now at 6 p.m., this particular model doesn't have anything. Now I got to keep in mind, models are not going to be exactly right to the, let alone hour, better yet, to the minute. So that's a challenge. So we're going to give it a window of roughly 6 p.m. to about 7. And there they go. They start to pop. And notice it's fairly close to the Ohio River and near Louisville as when this happens. This is when they can start to produce 1 or 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, is when they first pop on the radar. And then they will quickly organize into a line ahead of the actual front and move to the south. They start to lose the hail characteristic and hair. Got to watch out for the big hair. Those days are rough. Anyway, we'll end up losing that hail characteristic and go from that to a wind setup, and then eventually very heavy rainfall for those of you south of the parkways, where it will linger the longest, because these will become very efficient rainfall makers once the dry air is taken care of and we saturate. Rainfall amounts over 1 inch can easily get reached in this environment. So we need to watch that. That is more of a fourth, but smaller threat would be a localized flash flooding issue. That's something which I have to wait and see how they pop. But that is something I don't want to take off the table entirely. All right, so does that all make sense? Type 1 if you understand, type 2 if you don't, and then let me know what you don't understand, and I'll try to explain it. Because again, I don't want you guys to worry all day about this. We'll do that worrying for you, but it's only a very short time period. If I had to put a window on there, I think 6 to 8 p.m. is a good target window. Jedediah, why'd you put a 3 in there, Jedediah? He's always wanting those snow-nados. One day, Jedediah, it'll happen. One day. All right, so good. Let's move on then to the quiet weather that, again, we'll have for tomorrow night into Friday. This system rolls in. This one's going to be another strong system. It has quite a few similarities to Monday's system. The difference is that instead of a partly to mostly sunny sky that's going to create a lot of wind fields that can get to those wind gusts that were over 60 miles per hour on Monday, this one will have that potential, but only for some parts of its journey. The other issue that we have had absent so far in these bigger systems, tonight aside, but these bigger systems haven't really had too much in the way of thunderstorm action with them. We've had a lot of wind events that have been more based on mixing or partly sunny skies, or gradient wind as we call that. So gradient wind is a little more broad. It's not as localized, and it can be much longer lasting. As we saw on Monday, it can be relentless. In fact, however, when you deal with strong wind gusts embedded into thunderstorms, it's usually just wherever the line is, the wind surges, and then you're out of that phase fairly quick. We may end up with both on the map with this one, which is why it's getting a little more complex, because the timing will matter. As we head into Friday morning, the warm front will move on by. There's your heavy rain. And then here comes the actual line itself of thunderstorms that will move in. Now, the low itself is going to be quite strong. It has tried to speed up in some of the model runs and then tried to slow down. It's been back and forth. And that will matter because remember, again, when I said if you're south of the warm front but east of the cold front, you end up into that warm sector or the box, basically. And if you're right in this portion of it, again, almost like American flag being drawn, that's the part where you typically can run into problems when it comes to tornado development. But you usually can run into a big bust in severe weather forecasting in that corner, because it typically may not be enough time after you get out of the morning rain to build the fuel back up again for when the line moves through. So you end up with a tamer version and mainly just a wall of heavy rain. That's a good thing, right? And I think some of you in wave country will indeed see that kind of setup. However, if it continues to slow down and trend a little more northwest, then what happens is we end up having to redraw the box a little more like this into wave country. And that puts what we call triple point a little more toward Evansville and puts the rest of us a little more into the danger zone. on the severe wind side of it. So we've got to figure out, first off, its timing, because that's going to answer the question on the severe line of storms, if that's something to worry about or not. So we're working on that aspect of the forecast. If we were to get the line right now, I would say the timing, I don't know why my eye is itching. That means something, right? Someone talking about me? Someone's always talking about me. Anyway, it would mean the difference of getting a severe line of storms roughly around, say, lunch to about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or it actually taking place more east toward I-75 or into west or eastern Kentucky. So we've got to figure out that portion of the forecast. The second piece is what we had on Monday, what we call the gradient wind, which will be the strongest where the sun comes back out and you go partly sunny, which will likely be on the southern side of the low track, but after the line of storms. That zone right now looks to be more targeted for Missouri, Arkansas, West Kentucky, and Northwest Tennessee. That's where I'm seeing the gradient wind, and that area could easily get over 65 miles per hour in some cases. So this is a prime spot right now for a high wind warning to get issued. We don't know yet, depending on the time into the low, whether or not this could extend a little more into central Kentucky or Tennessee. That's a good question. It is certainly possible. And the Weather Service has got a tough job that day because we may end up with both ideas. Again, we'll have the line of storms we have to face toward lunch, and then we may have the gradient wind that we'll have to face as well as we head into later into the afternoon and early evening. All that is still being decided and worked on. And at the moment, I think if I'm holding out hope that we can fit perfectly in between the two ideas to where we can end up with the same day, but it's pretty hard to escape an alert day scenario with this one here, guys, unfortunately. So I think it's going to be an active day as we head into your Friday. All right. After that moves on by, we do get colder, but no, it's not going to snow. The snow will stay to our north. Bummer, right? That's all right. That's all right. It's too much weather drama for one day anyway. We don't want more than that. So we'll let you know more on the severe side of this as we get more data at midday today, but I would fully expect an alert day the way it's looking. Rainfall wise, now the heaviest of rain with this is going to be along the warm front and where the track of the low will be. So basically the track itself where that red L was, that's crucial because your heavy rain is going to follow its path. So if the low is a little more east than expected, that heavy rain, I'm talking easily up to 4 inches of rain, would be more into Kentucky and more into wave country, more of an issue of flash flooding and river flooding. If it's a little more west, it would mainly fall more into the Wabash River Basin and cause Ohio River flooding downstream into the Mississippi, not so much river flooding for the Ohio in our area, because we tend to run into more flooding problems when it falls into the Ohio Basin, or in some cases, central Kentucky. Those rivers, too, also feed into the Ohio. So still some questions on that separate thread altogether is rainfall. We're working on that as well. So this system's got multiple issues with it as we head into Friday. On your severe risk, they, again, did move this a little more to the north and west just to account for the slower speed and that box idea. And they're basically, the Storm Prediction Center is boxing in more like this, which would put Louisville right there in that iffy zone. If it slows down even more with the midday data, they will have to draw this slight risk even more north and west. And to be devil's advocate, if it speeds up, it would be more east. So there you go. Let's look at the gradient wind real fast. Again, I'm not seeing the kind of gusts that I saw with Monday because, again, all the modeling is now on the same page of where that zone will be in southern Missouri and Tennessee, how much that will get here. But again, that's a separate issue than the line of storms moving through the area. All right. Did that all make sense? Type 1, if you got that. Like, you're already putting ones down. Or maybe you're putting 1 because you're delayed reaction. Type 2, if you understand. Actually, type 1 if you understand. Type 2 if you don't understand. Type 3 if you want to go outside and play. I better see a lot of 3s. As far as the extended, because I've got to run because the drill is about to happen in a matter of minutes, and I really want to make sure that I don't want to confuse anyone being live thinking we're having severe weather. I more than likely will be getting into the longer term as far as the colder idea. Right now, all I am going to at least throw out to you guys as a nugget is March 10th stands out more and more as when we will likely see a flip to more of a wintry theme in the area. March 10th. That's the way it's looking right now. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm got to get going. I got to get ready for the midday show. Stay tuned. I'll let you know on midday if we have any changes, certainly on the Friday, and certainly as we head into this evening as well. Stay safe out there. Make sure to practice the drill procedures again coming up in 6 minutes from now. Have a good day, guys, and enjoy that 80 degrees.